What's up? Episode number 9.
Nah, I was say 9, right?
Definitely 9. Hanging with the Joneses. I am Rashad.
I'm Keisha.
And again, Hanging with the Joneses. And last 2 episodes was like a split episode, so it's been a little bit since we've done this. And the basis of this entire episode is just going to be the current events of our world right now. And, just where we are with our feelings and how we're kind of processing everything. All right, so it's been hard. Mm-hmm. It's been a hard couple of days, couple of weeks actually, and it's the time out of events is crazy because first it was just having to deal with this pandemic and everybody's in this rush to kind of get back to quote unquote normal. I ain't trusting none of that. I still got my mask on in public places. I'm still limiting what I'm doing in regards to being out and about and keeping stuff at a minimum. Then there was the, Ahmaud Arbery and him getting murdered, and then people realizing it after the facts and all that. And that was already like, man, that was messed up. Then it was Zoo in Central Park got called by a white lady on him talking about she felt threatened and whatnot, and it was a total farce. Then it was George Floyd.
You missed the lady who was sitting sleeping in her home when the cops busted in.
Oh yeah. That was a couple months ago. But that too, like all those things, and it's been a lot to process that, and having to deal with just the everyday dealings of being a black person, and having to be over vigilant in doing normal things. Like, it's like, yo, like, it shouldn't even be like it shouldn't even be like this. I shouldn't have to worry about all these things when I leave the house. Like,
not from the cops.
Just in general.
I'm saying, but even the cops are supposed to protect and serve, and the main source of kind of angst is if you get pulled over by a cop, the cops stop you.
Yeah. So there's always this thing like in the back of your mind where you have to be like super on guard, and very. I had to do all the things the right way at all the time, because one slip up, what have you, mess around, how you dead, because like I told my therapist yesterday, I said I'm not allowed to have a bad day in public. Like I can't go outside and get upset and get into an argument in the store, in the parking lot somewhere, and somebody see it and somebody call. Like, I'm not afforded those privileges. Because if something go left, I'm not going to be the one that's right.
But even as simple as you can't take a jog outside, you can't wear a hoodie outside, you can't have a phone outside. The list goes on. And I feel like when we start talking about what we can't do, first with Trayvon Martin, it was like, don't wear your hoodies outside, let your face be shown. Then when they stop you, put your hands up. And to the young man, when they asked him for his driver's license, he gave them, they murdered him. So it's like our list is getting too long of things we can't do. Soon we won't be able to breathe outside. Well, we can't. It's just I just remember every year or every situation is another thing on the list of what we can't do.
Yeah.
Now it's just becoming basic things we can't do, So it's our daughters went to the grocery store. And the conversation, the reason I was so fearful for them going to the grocery store was literally like right around the corner. I was like, what happened if a cop stops them? And we had to have a discussion on what to do if the police stop you. And I was like, this is sad. I'm not even really scared about cars or somebody pick you up. I'm like, if a cop stops you, what you gonna do? And I was like, this shouldn't be a concern, but in fact, it is though. And then, remind me of when we went to my doctor's appointment, and the doctor described that his daughter was an engineer or something, was an engineer or electronics, something.
Yeah.
And he went to the conference. He said, in the conference, my daughter, we was the only white people, and my daughter was the only female there. All of them were like Middle Easterns or kind of that. What did he say? Mostly Middle Easterns.
Yeah.
And he said that made me feel really uncomfortable. And I know how you feel now. And it was like, yeah, you kind of get it, but you don't, because, well, when you're in that situation, you can just walk out the door and close the door and walk into your world where you're the majority. There is no door for me to walk out of.
Nah.
So whether I'm there, anywhere, I can clearly see, we talk about it, and I think we say often, like, well, you the only black person there? It is so a situation that how many times we're the only ones there. So I was like, thank you for understanding microcosm.
Yeah, microcosm.
of what I've been through. But that's my life. You get to walk out.
Yeah.
And I know, and not to say everyone's like that. I love my doctor. But I was glad that he's understood. But just a perspective of, you got the glimpse. You got 2 seconds of a lifetime for me.
Yeah.
But then I know it's like a lot of, we need to have open communications. And I know there's a lot of white people in all nationalities who part of this Black Lives Matters and, this injustice. But I think part of it, to understand white privilege, you have to really sit down and talk to people who don't have the privilege. Because, and it's no fault to you, but if society always create where you have these privileges, a lot of times you don't know that's a privilege. And I use the example, the resume and your name. Some might not even notice that the name on your resume can determine if you get a job. And then even we was talking to one young lady, she was white, and someone said, I don't even put an address on my resume because they can Google to see if I'm an all-black neighborhood, and I might not likely get the job because my neighborhood. And I appreciate, she said, wow, I didn't realize that you had even going down to putting the address. And she admitted, she was like, and I must admit, like, that was white privilege for me. Those are things I never had to think about.
Yeah.
And then even, going back, like, when we try to name our children, you don't want to name a name too black. And not to say, that was some of the culture. Of course, not everyone felt that way. Because sometimes black names were ghetto. And then it was one friend that pointed out to me, was like, why black names ghetto? But any other nationality, it's not ghetto. I was like, Now, don't get me wrong, your name coming to Honda. It's totally different.
Yeah.
But it was like, she was like, so why we don't appreciate our names? When you see somebody Asian descent and they have their, name says, you can tell where they come from, we don't say, oh, that name is ghetto. It's okay. That's part of the culture.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to just the whole, and the part that like really upsets me a lot is when somebody would tell me, oh, there is no racism, or there is no such thing as white privilege, or I don't, like, y'all out here, like, hyping stuff up that shouldn't even be.
I wish.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, why would I be out here, like really trying to have a conversation with you about these things that I don't even really want to be dealing with in the first place.
And that's privilege right there, because you don't see, and thank God for cameras and social media now where these things are being exposed. This is not more of this happening. It's that we didn't have social media and people wasn't record. We didn't have cell phones back then. Black people have been getting killed by law enforcement for a minute.
Since the inception of law enforcement.
Right. I remember being back home and remember a young man getting killed by the police. It's several names that we don't have a face to. So this is not something new. It's just newly, and even the newly recorded. I don't even know if that's accurate because there's been several instances of this being recorded.
Yeah.
But even to say that it's not include, like, I remember, and I do have a friend, and she's very woke. Like, she's clear. She's like, Keisha, they being racist. Like, she's very woke. And we went to a restaurant. This was when we started working at social services. We had on our, like, suit, business outfits. I even our name tags that said where we're from. And we went to a restaurant, and they wouldn't serve us. And this is still 2000 something. They would not serve us. And mind you, it's not like we had on hoodie or jeans. We had business attire, even our name tags on saying that we were from social services. They would not serve us. And my friend was like, they're not serving you because you're black, right? I said, yeah, because it was other white people coming around. They went right to them. We sitting there like, okay. So finally leave there. We walk in. A white man stops us. Can you clean my boat? That was like the cherry on the cake. Can I clean your boat? And the assumption was because we're black, we must do housekeeping.
Yeah, I guess y'all some day laborers or something.
Yes. And I don't think he even saw anything wrong with what he said. Because he looked like he was totally surprised when I said some things. He was totally surprised by my comment. It was like, I'm trying to offer you a job. What? What made you think, like, did I come to you for a job?
I don't even know you.
Right. And just even many times I've been followed around in stores because I'm black.
Well, I get pulled over dumb stuff. Like one day I got pulled over for having like air freshener hanging from my rearview mirror. Like one day I got pulled over because my raggedy car was blowing too much smoke out the exhaust. I'm like, fam, like why are you even like why?
And then he said he was using you for training.
Yeah, like for real, like why are you even bothering me?
Or even like working in the field, how if you live in certain neighborhoods, when they have new police officers, they ride through your area. And I'm saying that, I'm like, what happened? Why all these police officers are riding through the neighborhood? And they said, oh, because they just came out of the academy. They was just made police. So they take them through all the hoods. And I was like, what was the purpose of that? It wasn't like, oh, hi, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm your local. I said it was straight intimidation. And it was only for black people. I was like, oh my gosh, they just intimidating.
Yeah. And crazy thing is like, this is just our story. There's so many other stories like this, and stories that are even worse and more, just hard to listen to. And people have a hard time acknowledging what doesn't affect them. And that's the part that's kind of like, like the most, that like pisses me off the most. Because sometimes you have people like that, that you have to work with and the whole nine, and they still will not acquiesce anything because it doesn't affect them. And even like, I saw somebody on the Facebook the other day talking about like, oh, like, yeah, like they're trying to take away all of our history. And this was in
history? What?
And this was in reference to like, Virginia governor taking out all the statues and stuff.
The Confederation statues?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's history.
All the Confederate stuff.
Right.
And in my mind, I was like, so you really out here standing for some statues from a group of people who lost an entire war? You feel what I'm saying? Like
it means history.
Yeah, it's history. Yeah, it's heritage, not hate. And but your whole heritage was rooted around the fact that one. And I think the funny thing to me, like first off, like that flag, the rebel flag that's like most the stars and bars, that wasn't even around during the Civil War. That wasn't made up until after the war in antebellum South during the Reformation. They tried to, really bring about some sort of camaraderie, and they needed a symbol, and that was a symbol. But that was like after the fact. They had like a whole bunch of flags. They couldn't even settle on a flag during the war. They had a bunch of flags for the South. Then on top of that, everything that was done was systematically done or systemically done to make sure black people didn't really gain anything, even in regards to how the South treated us, because there was no way that Jim Crow should have been passed. You feel what I'm saying? Like that was a thing. And think about this. Jim Crow were laws that were only based in the South, even though they were part of America. You feel what I'm saying? See how crazy that sounds? So I have a federal government that controls everything, but the southern half of a united country has their own set of rules. You feel what I'm saying? And those rules and regulations and everything all stems from them not wanting to vacate any power they had to black folks. That's just the reality of it. Then we what we do? We leave Great Migration, you know what I'm saying, and then go up north, still get harassed, still racism. White folks then do what? White flight. They leave, go to the suburbs.
Not my neighborhood.
Not here. And then there's like pockets of racist events happening all throughout the late 1800s and up until today. So like, you can't come to me and say like, oh, like what my heritage is not hate, because what you are believing and so emboldened and so excited about is based on power over somebody else.
And even you say the person saying about there is no privilege. When you have a constitution that considers you 3/5 of a person, that had to go through all this process to get removed that we're not 3/5 of a person. Like, how does that look?
Yeah, and then every some odd time, like the amendment has to be ratified.
Right. Right.
Like, oh yeah, you may go back to being 3/5 a person and then ratify the amendment. Like, for real?
Does that mean we have to pay 3/5 of the tax?
No, not at all.
Something different.
No, it don't work like that.
But but to say that it's not, when you have it in so much writing, I feel like right there is privilege, because I don't think it can get more obvious. That's just some people want to turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah, and silence is just you being complicit to it. Also means that you don't really care. All thing you care about is yourself.
But it's the difference between silence and people who really like, what are you talking about? What? You know what I mean? That's a difference. Because you might be in silence, but you know what's going on.
Yeah.
But for you to have no idea, like, is this new? Come on.
They're just oblivious.
Right. It's like, come on. I even can understand the silence. I'm being honest with you. Because depending on your family, what kind of social group you're in, it could be hard to be the only person, good or bad. Only person that's like, no, this is injustice, or the only person who's like, I don't see nothing wrong. So I can kind of see the sound, or even sometimes silence is, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know, which I encourage. If you don't know what to do, I'd rather you say that, especially if you're a white person. I don't mind you asking me, like, okay, I had someone ask me, so what do I do? I prefer that, because I don't assume that because some of the stuff is like, what do we do? Because my thing is, after the protesting and rioting, how do we get these laws changed? What's the steps to get in that? We need stuff that be on book, on record, permanently. So it won't be a next whoever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It won't be a next. So I understand. I mean, not the same, but the same. Even sometimes come to me like, what do you do to your hair? How do you do that? I don't mind it. I'd rather you ask me as opposed to just take this general perception that you know everything, you know what to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. It's the I feel like the overall just like misconception and just misjudgment and just the mistreatment of black folks like over the years as we all see has reached a fever pitch, and people are just really they're just exacerbated. Like I come on, yo, like it's like too much. Like it's not even enough is enough. Like this is too much.
I think the whole first COVID, everybody's already quarantined. You might have emotions behind that, fearful of going outside, and then you see it's just like emotions and emotions and emotions. Then even throw in, we got some killer bugs, and then these children getting these diseases that might be COVID related. It's like it's enough. It is enough.
And then like on the top of all that, like on top of all this stuff is going on, you want to like really just like kill a dude on top of everything that's going on. You know what I'm saying? Like in society as a whole.
And be surprised.
Yeah.
Like what? What I do?
Like, what you mean?
That was murder?
I told.
How about the medical examiner who said it wasn't?
Like, oh yeah, like there's a
now
way.
tell me how that's not a system.
Like, oh yeah, there's a way to say that his injuries, that his death wasn't caused by the injuries of a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
Like what? Like you really wrote this down?
And from doing the autopsy, usually the detectives, the cops are there doing the autopsy.
Of course.
So it could be a very behind the door conversation.
Oh yeah,
cover up.
Oh yeah.
Detectives are there when autopsies are done and it's a high case. The police department detectives, they are there.
Yeah, because that initial statement, that was like what, 2 days after the whole thing popped off.
Mm-hmm.
But then a couple of days later, they's like, oh yeah, like he died from.
No, the family got had a personal autopsy.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so it had to be separated from the system.
Yeah.
To state the obvious.
Yeah. Again.
I mean, someone is holding your throat. I think anyone dies for asphyxiation.
It's too much.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, to the extent, even going back to our my initial point, is like we have to do all of this stuff just to do regular crap. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Somebody died, autopsy. If the toxicology report may take like a month and a half to come back, but still, it should be a normal process. Mm-hmm. I got to do all the stuff just to make sure that I'm safeguarding myself when I walk out the house. Normal stuff. Mm-hmm. I got to make sure that I do all this other stuff when I go run and jog. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I have to make sure I do all these things.
You're not in the wrong neighborhood, which could be your neighborhood.
Yes. It is not like, and yeah, I'm sorry.
But I did encourage, and I've been saying this a while, I had to do it myself, protect your mental health. It is a lot. It is a lot. I'm constantly getting videos, texts, like, it's overwhelming. You have to protect your mental health. Because if you don't protect your mental health, you're not in anybody's fight. Whether it's Black Lives Matter, if you don't protect your mental health, you're not there to help the cause. So I ask you, protect your mental health. If you're on social media following every story, or you watching the video when he was murdered, stop.
Yeah, I had to really disengage, and it was hard for me, and I hope somebody can relate, because on one side I was like, yo, like, I was like, first, okay, usually people that are angry, they're angry because their feelings are hurt, all right? So my feelings was all hurt about this, and that feelings of sadness then turned into my secondary emotion, which is usually anger. So I was really angry about this about 3 or 4 days, and it took me a while to let it go. and it's not because like I'm trying to hold to the anger, but because I felt like if I wasn't angry about what's going on, if I wasn't outraged, I felt like I was selling out because I wasn't out. If I wasn't out for the cause if I wasn't mad, and I had to disassociate from the anger for myself. Like I can feel my blood pressure rising. I can literally feel it, and I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I know, me being angry for a prolonged time does nothing for me. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't help me. But I still had to really acknowledge and separate how I felt about what was going on in regards to how I felt about my own self. I can still be not down what was going on and not be angry and not live in that perpetual state. Like those are two different lanes. And I had to really not be angry every day in order for me to actually function and do things and be available and present for my immediacy. You know what I'm saying? So like that's what I had to do.
So if I'm being correct, you said living that state of anger kind of almost handicapped you.
It does every time.
Yeah. So you had to kind of, I'm not saying find a resolution, but you had to kind of find another way to process that emotion. Because you can't live in this state. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Like, I was waking up in the middle of the night crying. I'm like, this has got too much. And, you know me, not saying too much, but like, I have to do better with taking care of my mental health because it's really stopping me from doing day-to-day stuff like being there for me, you, my children. Still for the cause. It was wrong as crap. Can't say anything. Can't say it was anything more wrong. It was just anything you look, it was wrong. That made George Floyd should have been able to get up and walk away.
Yeah.
It should be no R.I.P. next to his name.
Nah, he should have had his day in court.
Right.
Like any other quote unquote criminal.
Right.
You
Which
know?
I don't think it was anything.
No, right. I don't even know.
But I do guard your mental health. This might be a long fight we're going to be in. This is a long fight. It's been going on for decades now. If you don't guard your health, you're not going to be able to fight.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a real good way to end it. You know, take it from me. Like, definitely make sure you are aware of where your mind is. And also, like I said the other day, make sure you protect your heart. You got to protect your heart. If you're not protecting your heart, then eventually your heart will fail you, whether it be figuratively or literally. You got to protect your heart because out of it flows all the issues of your life. And you have to make sure that you are safeguarding what is nearest and dearest to you.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, that's hanging with the Joneses, man. Be safe. Make sure you check on your people. Check on your people. If you know somebody's going through and they're not reaching out, go check on them. Check on your people. Make sure your people okay. And we see y'all next time.
See you next week.